Everyone has a bright light inside of them that deserves to be seen by the world. That's why it's time to shine the light on the extraordinary who are accomplishing phenomenal things. This is the Shine Out Loud Show with
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening in the world, wherever in the world you are, and welcome to another episode of the Shine Out Loud Show with me, Liliana Bogo. Now, folks, I have two amazing women who sat down in 2019 and said enough is enough. They decided to break myths and change narratives and change stories. They say Black girls actually do knit and started the Black Girl Knit Club after a hashtag spurred them on into action. I am talking about Sicgmone and Vea Koranteng. They came together after working on various creative projects to start Black Girl Knit Club. Ladies, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Hi, Lydia. I hope you're well.
I am good. Thank you for asking. Ladies, I'm excited to interview you. So first and foremost, you are founders in your own right of this amazing knit club. You are lecturers, you are interior designers, and most importantly, you're also, congratulations, published authors.
Thank you.
So let me gush, and then you have this amazing platform. So ladies, let's go back to the very beginning. Tell me about Black Girl Knit Club. What was the hashtag that made you start taking action?
Okay, should I start with this one, V? So in 2019, there was a hashtag going around called diverse knitting. Basically, it was kind of a call to action where more crafters and knitters were calling for more diversity within, they weren't seeing people of color within the industry crafting or kind of knitting, etc. But separate from that, Vanessa and I were co-founders, we're also friends. And we always separately collaborated as friends. And I'm actually from a knitwear background. Vanessa's from an interior styling background, but we were always kind of collaborating together. And we kind of realized that there wasn't really a space, because I was knitting a lot. I studied textiles at within University of West London, and kind of realized there wasn't really a space for knitters or crafters that looked like me. And at the time, I was actually, Vanessa and I were doing something, I was kind of teaching her how to knit. And then we were just a bit like, why don't we kind of set up a workshop? And then we're like Black Girl Knit Club. And it kind of started from there. And then as we were kind of doing our research, and Vanessa was like, okay, we need to set up, our social medias. We then realized that there was this whole thing called diverse knitting, where there was a kind of a call to action, even before we'd even realized. And then actually there was a space where women wanted to see people that looked like them, that kind of knitted. So we set up our first workshop. It was in February. It was February 2019, wasn't it? And there we, when we had our first kind of workshop, we realized that women, they wanted to knit, but they also just wanted to kind of share stories about themselves, about things that were going through, their hair, their children. And we realized that actually women just wanted to have a space to be around kind of people that look like them. And I think it kind of stemmed, that was kind of the starting point, and then it kind of organically grew from there, really.
Awesome.
Yeah.
V, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Definitely following on to what Sicgmone was saying, but I think more so the visibility aspect of women of colour wasn't there. So we wanted to actually make sure that we created a platform that we are visible. Like, even when it just started on social media, we had loads of numbers. So with me, I'm more behind the scenes and more like marketing and the business side and business development side of Black Girl Knit Club. But yeah, so we organically grew our subscribers. We have over 700 plus subscribers. And we also have a big following on various different social platforms. And from the beginning in 2019, February, from that sold out workshop, we realized that there wasn't a space for us, but we created a space. So even in London, there was a big outcry for just being together, women being together, being able to actually develop their hand skills and just create something with their hands, as well as just be in the same room and just have that same interest. So I think it was just a great organic story, the way that we actually created it. But I think in hindsight, we realized that, yeah, there was an outcry for it.
Awesome. I mean, the fact is, you've created this really amazing space where women, like you said, that look like us can come and be in the same space. And you mentioned that you wanted it to be a safe space for women of color and who were crafters. People will look up and say, well, there's so many crafting groups. Why is it important that we have a separate space? Why can't we integrate and be in those spaces? And I think I'll start with you, Vanessa.
I think more so from the workshop. So our very first workshop, we kind of used it as like a testing ground to see actually what our followers and what our members wanted. So from then, we had various workshops throughout the whole year. And we had also a lot of collaborations with like big companies and competitors as well. And they realized that they needed more diversity in their aspects of their workspace and the way that they carry on with their business and their company. So they collaborated with us, and we kind of shifted into the forefront of being that diverse kind of pinpoint for the actual crafting community, kind of, so to speak. But I think the importance of us actually combining all of what we've done so far, and as well as collaborating with these companies, I think it was actually needed because, we just needed to actually, what's the word? Yeah, we actually just needed to actually make sure that we're at the forefront of this diverse crowd, so to speak.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Vanessa. So going through and looking at everything that you're doing right now, and I mentioned at the very beginning that you both are recently authors because you've released your first book, called Conscious Craft. And we want to talk about that, but I'm going to pin that for a second because I want to understand how your journey, how you came to actually work on separate projects. How did you both meet? Because even though you're both in crafting and in that design industry, you, Vanessa, are in interior design from the construction industry, and Simone, you are a lecturer in textile design. First of all, I think I'm going to start with Simone. How did you end up becoming a lecturer?
Okay, so I studied textile design, knitwear at Central St. Martin's. So I did knit, print, and weave. I didn't, Vanessa and I are both from Ghanaian background, so I didn't actually learn to knit until I think I was about 18 in my first year.
Right.
And then graduated with a kind of degree in textiles knitwear, worked for different kind of trend forecasting companies, whilst working in retail, set my own business. And then from that point onwards, then realized that I was working as a stylist for a big kind of retail company. But then I always felt like I wanted more purpose to what I was doing. I always wanted to have, I enjoyed collaboration. I enjoyed working on group projects. And I joined a community called Shades of Noir. Okay. And Shades of Noir is a company that kind of promotes the work of more kind of Black lecturers within higher education, in terms of the fact that there needs to be more visibility of Black educators. And I was kind of with them during my journey, and then there was a point where I had the opportunity to come back and to do my kind of PG cert to lecture in higher education. And then through that process, I then realized that I wanted to give back more. And I kind of went back to do my PG cert to lecture within design, and specifically looking at the fact of wanting to make the curriculum more inclusive specifically for Black women, for women of color, for students from diverse backgrounds. Because I found within my design education, I've spoke to, Vanessa and I spoke, we're friends, we speak about it all the time, that I didn't have that reference. I didn't have, it was very Eurocentric based curriculum. I wasn't learning by designers from the Caribbean, from West Africa, from different kind of painters. And within my research, I was looking at what's the experience of Black female kind of designers within the university that I studied. And I found out that, especially with the Black female students within the course that I did, struggled a little bit more. And why was that? So there was always that area of interest, and that's what led me down the route of education and into lecturing. So very much a part of what I work with my students is also making sure that curriculum is inclusive, making sure there is reference to different black designers from different backgrounds, and that we really know their narratives. So it means that, you know, when these young designers are working with different companies or are coming into play within the industry, that they're also aware of that they're going to be working with different people from different backgrounds, and so that they're aware of the narratives that they bring, and that they can really understand their story. And going back to your other question, what you mentioned, the fact of, you know, why is it that we need a safer space for kind of black women, you know, women of color? Why is our space separate? And I think it's because you know, we don't, you know, when we're in the kind of these, you know, sometimes very white spaces, there isn't that reference there. And, you know, Vanessa and I have seen, for instance, us working with each other, you know, the references that we bring, there needs to be a space where you can support each other and grow through the motions. You know, I found that being on a course with only 2 other Black girls, but we had that support with each other. And that's why it's also needed. And that's what we do together, you know, as, you know, Black Girl Knit Club as well. There's that support that pushes us forward, and it's integral to our growth. You know, Vanessa and I wouldn't have got to this point had we not had each other and had our different skills as well. So, you know, that's kind of what's led to kind of the lecturing and kind of that kind of side. And I think that's what's great about our partnership, because I bring that kind of lecturing educational side, and Vanessa comes from the kind of the styling side, the business development side, and it really pushes our brand forward in the right kind of direction. It's a great marriage of two different skill sets that kind of work, and that's why we've got to this position.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that answer. Vanessa, looking at you've come from the interior design and in construction. And when I read that about you on your profile, I was like thinking, I've never heard of that. So in terms of being a Black woman in interior design, in construction. So I'm going to ask, are you a first and only in your field? How does it feel? How did you come into that field?
Let me go all the way back to obviously starting university. So I graduated from the University of Brighton back in 2011 or 12, one of those years, and I studied architectural technology. And from then, even on my course, there was only three Black women, actually 3 Black girls back then.
Wow.
And we literally, like Simone said, we literally had that support of each other. Obviously navigating the space of living in a different town. Obviously we were all from London, you know, moving to Brighton. And then obviously just being on a course, which was typically male-led, and then going on construction sites, which is typically like, you know, the builder's hat with the boots and everything like that, and adjusting to obviously being looked at a bit like, oh, are you sure you want to do this course? Kind of thing. And that was obviously questioned throughout the whole 3.5 years that I was doing it. And then from then, but alongside that, I was always a creative. So I was always trying to be creative in terms of the fashion editorial side. So I would always scour like the vintage scene in Brighton, the vintage clothing scene. So I'll look at different garments. I was obviously buying garments back then, and I would wear them, and always be trying to be different, because Brighton was a new town for me, but also obviously on the student budget. But not only that, I think it just made me want to also change the narrative of my own story and my own way of clothing and the way that I used to dress. So I used to just scour different vintage shops. They've got a great scene in Brighton for different vintage shops. And then I would actually collect them, and then obviously create a collection out of them. So I would shoot them. I'll be the creative director, style them, find a photographer, do the styling, find a location, create the story behind it. And then that's what created my brand, Brancho Studio, Vintage. So we looked at more so the garment care of vintage and sustainability, and also navigating that fashion scene back then, which was kind of new. Obviously now there's loads of resellers and everything like that, but back then it was kind of new to actually navigate that scene where you would actually create a story out of garments that were used or secondhand. And I would also collect items from the 50s to 60s, as long as they were quality. So that was my ethos, to make sure that they were quality. And then obviously make sure that the next person or the next woman who actually bought my items would actually create their own story from that.
Wow.
But yeah, so that is alongside parallel to doing my degree at Brighton. And then from then, I was actually an architectural technician. And so I was going on site and actually drawing up internal spaces, exterior spaces. And then I was doing design coordination and then design management, which is more so managing the design team. So with architects, structural engineers,
Okay.
mechanical engineers, making sure that the building basically stood up. Because yeah, the architectural side is more fancy and is more, making it look nice and stuff like
Right.
that. But the actual technical side of it, the construction side, make sure that all the numbers, all the details, everything like that is all combined to make sure that it makes sense for the site to actually go and build it, basically. And then yeah, from then I went into interior design management. So then that's more so my field right now. That's
Right.
what I do right now. Yeah.
Well, that is an incredible story because you've had parallel lives alongside of creating everything that you do with the vintage fashion and sustainable fashion. And I think that's something that in itself is a conversation because right now everybody's looking at fast fashion and its impact on the world. And I think that I think for me personally, looking at it is how do we navigate that? Because there's some sites you go on as like supposed to be slow fashion, and the prices are always astronomical. So how can Black women actually navigate the whole arena of slow fashion? What can we start doing? And this is for both of you. What can we start doing to say, I want to be sustainable in a way that is sustainable for me financially, economically, all the different stories that we have to tell. How can we start creating a sustainable fashion story for ourselves?
I think more so the slow aspect. So obviously thinking of how slowness and wellness is interlinked, I think you have to really figure out your own budget first. And I think because the quality is in a garment, like some of the companies, there's no doubt about it, that there is quality in how they make their items and how they source their items and how they actually create the garment and the story behind it, all of that branding and all of that marketing and branding stuff. But I think figuring out your budget and actually purchasing the item and not wearing it, and wearing it like year on year, and yeah, making sure that it is actually quality,
Right.
and yeah, just making sure that it's not trend driven. So you yourself, that if you're investing in this piece, you know that you've invested in that company and what they stand for. But I think also for yourself, that you can wear it next summer or 2 summers from now, or a winter dress kind of thing, and you can actually style it to the way that you want it. So
Yeah.
that aspect is the wellness side of it, where you actually change the story for yourself and how it fits for your environment and your lifestyle.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. Sicgmone, what will be
I
your take?
mean, I think I've learned a lot from Vanessa. I've been working with Vanessa over the past 2 years, especially when it comes to this idea from a styling perspective, spatial and even with garments, etc. And I think in many ways from a craft perspective, I would say it may even be about crafting and making your own garments, making some of your own where you can. Like Vanessa said, having your key pieces, like really consider your wardrobe. I've even been in a space where I'm even not trying to buy more, but trying to buy more quality, like Vanessa said, and thinking about your key pieces and how you can restyle them in different ways.
Right.
And also, if you can craft, if you can be making some of your own key pieces, or kind of, can you take something, shred it up and remake it into something else? Sounds quite abstract, but trying to be quite creative with your wardrobe as well, and considered and thinking about, again, if it is that you have a small budget, but really investing in like that one key amazing dress, with a really good knitted jumper, but really consider the brands that you're also going for as well. Are they Black owned? Are they kind of sustainable? But working with what you have within your budget, and if you can't buy more, then thinking about how you can restyle things together in different kind of interesting ways. And if you can craft, and making some of your own pieces as well, where you can, if you can. I think.
Okay. I like the fact that you added if you can, because not all of us are gifted in that.
I know. I mean, Vanessa and I still have, I think, a jumper we're working on from like last year.
I mean, you got to a jumper. I've told you my story. I will have to come down to the workshops.
Yeah.
I will have to come to the workshops to learn.
Yeah.
You're more than welcome to.
Yeah, you have to. We're definitely gonna have you come to a workshop after this for sure.
I hope that you're patient teachers. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. We are. Most people who do attend our workshops are beginners anyway, so it's always fun.
And this is key. I thank you for sharing that, Vanessa, about the beginner aspect, because a lot of women will look up and think, well, is this space really for me? Because the idea of coming into a space where everybody is basically a ninja with a knitting needle will be a bit terrifying. So that's a good question, and that's a good point to make, that you shared that it's people that come are beginners. So they're different mixed skills in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all different, definitely different levels. And then what you do find is, even when you do come to a workshop and it is kind of beginner led, if someone is more advanced, they'll be helping the next person.
Yeah.
Which is quite nice. And it starts. So we've had, mothers come with their daughters, or we've even had grandmothers come with their grandchildren, and they're kind of, oh, this is the technique. So it almost becomes, it's more like a conversation through making. So you find that, yes, it is about, we do have some sessions that are focused on making mittens, or making a hat, or making a bag. But then the ones that are we did like a workshop for a brand called, it's a curly treats, which was it took place in Hammersmith. It was all kind of Black-owned businesses,
right, looking
at hair and different things. And what we found for that, I think the participants were knitting different. I think it was like a coaster square from our book. What we found is that there were very different levels, but some people were like super advanced, maybe even more advanced than me, I would say. But they were there just helping each other, talking, having conversation, helping up another child, helping them to cast on. Anyway, we were just kind of facilitating the room. And that's what's great. It's like almost coming to have a glass of rosé or drink with your friend. You can focus, but we always leave there all the time having such amazing conversations with different women. So I think whatever level you are, it's open for you to explore. And if you're advanced, great, you can come in and do some amazing things. And if you're not, you can come and meet someone new and learn a new skill as well. So yeah.
This is fantastic. Okay, thank you so much for that. Now, I've been kind of talking around the book, but this year in March 2022, you've released a book called The Conscious Crafts Knitting, where you have 20 mindful makes to reconnect the heart, head, and hands. What inspired this journey to actually bring out this book?
We were approached actually back in August 2020 about this book, and we didn't believe it. Actually, we were like, we just left the email, like, maybe it was just a phishing email, so I wouldn't. But then we realized that they actually wanted us to be a part of their knitting or their book series, right. And then we went back and forth in terms of contracts and making sure that it was the right fit for us. And then we got to work basically January 2021, and then we had to basically actually make sure we knew what we were, what kind of projects that we wanted to finalize and include in the book. And I think also with the wellness aspect of knitting, we wanted to make sure that was at the forefront of it all. So there's loads of quotes in the book that actually help you as you're knitting and creating a project, kind of that meditative aspect of knitting and being creative with your hands, which is what the book is about. And we wanted to make sure that it is all connected, because your environment is so important. So there's projects in the book that actually extend to your environment. So there's home projects, as well as fashion projects, as well as just everyday projects. And we just wanted to make sure that all of those aspects are intertwined. And then as you're actually doing the projects, and you can actually reflect and just take time out of your busy day to actually do these projects. But the journey has been It's been different. It's been new for us because obviously we've never worked with a publishing company before. We've never been authors, so now that we are, we kind of know how to navigate and how to actually do certain things for our next book.
That's incredible. So I'm
Yeah.
going to go to Simone for this next question. Now that you're both authors, what is the one thing that you would give as advice to another woman who is about to venture down the road of publishing with a publishing house?
Mm.
I would say read all the contracts.
Yeah.
Read all
Yeah.
the contracts. Make sure you're very aware of, what you're signing.
Right.
I would say give yourself time to write. Sometimes give yourself a longer extension of time than you think you potentially need as well, to kind of switch off so you can have that time to kind of write through the process.
Right.
I think what other advice would I give? I would say make sure you have, clear conversations with how you want the book to be marketed, the marketing team. If you're writing a book and you'll have like imagery in it, make sure you're working with a photographer that you're comfortable with and happy with, etc. And just have a really good clear plan as well. I think that's the main thing. That's the main thing that I would say. But also, be bold. And we never thought, we always say we never thought that we'd be authors when we came on this journey. We were just like two friends at the time that didn't have jobs and decided to go and create this. So be bold, and also know that you have something to offer. If you've been approached to kind of write a book or have an idea to sketch it out, have a clear plan, visualize it, but go for it as well. Because I think, we've had so many amazing opportunities that have come. And in a way, we always said that we were kind of prepared for this book, because all the projects that we included, especially from obviously this is from the styling side, so the home side was very much projects she thought would work best, and mine was more from the fashion accessory side. But a lot of the projects we'd actually done with our community of women before, so a lot of the kind of the desktop, the desk mat, coasters, the mittens, we had done those workshops like the year before. So when it came to writing the book and writing the projects, we almost already had them kind of outlined. And especially, it's around conscious crafts, it's around mindfulness, and it's around, I think it's around Black women and craft. And in many ways, you don't, from a knitter's perspective, as someone that's been in the industry for the past, how old am I? 10 or plus years, I have never seen a knitting book with Black hands, ever.
Wow.
Never.
Okay.
Never seen a book with Black hands. The fact that, we had Black hands in, our step-by-steps, that's something that I've never seen before. So it's those small things that are powerful, because for that young Black student, brown student that is doing something like studying knitwear in university or somewhere, just the thing of seeing Black hands in a book is that I can be in those spaces, and that's why we really wanted to, this is part of a series, because we were in two minds, do we do a series or do we do our own book? But for us, it's been a good starting point of us to really learn the process. And things don't go smoothly, you make mistakes, but we've learned from that. So we know that for our next book, we're going to really know how to navigate. We made the mistakes, but that's also fine. But I think we're proud of the process, and we had two other people from our community, two other knitters that also supported on some of the projects. So even to have them as part of the process, we have an amazing photographer that's part of our team, Kingsley, who did all of our photography. He's been with us from the beginning of the journey. So for us to have had him be part of that, did all of the styling. We photographed it in Walthamstow wetlands. It was all kind of really blue and green, and we had an amazing model that's worked with us before. So it was a real collaboration of our ideas. I mean, we're all Ghanaians in our team as well, surprisingly.
Nice.
So, to think that it's a book that, our future children would see. It's archived in history, and that's, it's going to be available. It's transcribed at the British Library, so it's going to be there, 50 years to come. You're going to be able to see that. And I think, it's about writing your own story and having that narrative there. So in a way, for us, that's, it's powerful. So yeah.
Ladies, I'm extremely proud of you. So thank you for being in the space that you are in to actually create that. And you said for the young Black students, I think even for the older mothers and grandmothers, for them to see this kind of book will be pivotal for them. So the work that you're doing, congratulations. And the book is sold out. So I guess my next question is, when can we expect it back in stock so we can get a copy?
It depends what store actually, because we actually went to Liberty. Well, Simone went to Liberty recently, and realized that it was actually in store. Whereas some of my other friends bought it via Amazon, WH Smith, Foyles. So I don't think it's out of stock there yet.
Okay. So
but it just depends what retail store that you get it from. But yeah, it was also nice to see it in store at Liberty actually, because it was alongside our yarns.
Yes.
So
yes. And just to mention as well, it's also been translated into French, and it's also been published in the US. That was US. Yeah. That was on March the 21st, the 1st, wasn't it? Yes. So the fact that it's also across the globe is also. I mean, we have quite a big following in the US. Obviously, the craft industry is massive in the US, which we kind of discovered. So I think if we could do some workshops there, that's also on our bucket list.
That would be amazing, because like you said, the crafting industry is huge, but there's also, I found there's more of that idea of people coming together to craft, because you have people who would make quilts and together as a family. And so I think that is a whole different story. And even for people creating something like that here, where they can make together, mother, daughter, grandmother, is a story in textile. And I think that's important.
I was going to say, because you have the G's Ben quilt makers from Alabama, textile maker designers, and that was kind of during that time where people would really come together. It was kind of a kind of, I guess, social justice perspective in terms of the quilt makers and that kind of history and how they come together. So in a way, kind of this intergenerational way of people kind of making in spaces, and how that has come back around, especially during a time like COVID, where you're kind of at home and you want to be more creative. Because we did a series of idents for the BBC. That's kind of one of the biggest highlights of, I guess it's been one of the highlights of our journey over the past 3 years. So we were approached by the producers from BBC to do a series of idents, knitting idents in collaboration with a photographer called Martin Parr, BBC Oneness. So that's something we'd never done before. We were approached to do it. We're like, oh my gosh, we need to do some idents. So that was really exciting. It's probably seen by like 34 million people, and it was only supposed to be for I think it was 2 weeks, but it ended up being on screens for a year as well. Talk about visibility. So it was myself and Vanessa and three of our other members from our group that did that as well. But again, especially during lockdown and with making, we found we also had an online Zoom session for our community just come together, and we found that we had a woman from Sweden, someone was from Brazil, weren't they, Vanessa? We had a lady from Brazil that kind of tuned in, and people from just all across the globe. So I think this idea of coming together, joining, and kind of making, especially during the kind of lockdown period, it's kind of people are getting back into that process. So I think that's also really exciting.
I think, when you mentioned the BBC ident, I think I remember seeing during that lockdown period where there will be flashes before a BBC show. And I remember seeing that. And when you said that, I was like, wait a minute, I saw that. And so that were you guys. Okay. And I was going to ask about how you navigated the whole COVID with the club, and you've just shared that. So did you find that it was more than just the knitting that you were doing during that lockdown period when you had ladies coming into the club? Did you find it was more the well-being, more the care because being in isolation, or was it just a mix? And now this is to both of you.
I think it was a mix, but more so they wanted just to be, because we did it online. Most of our sessions were online during COVID. So like you mentioned, the international women who joined us, most of them, obviously it's hard to teach online because obviously physically you're not there showing them exactly what you want to do, but some of them were avid knitters anyway. But I think they just wanted to be around each other. They wanted to meet new people. They wanted to still use their hands. They still wanted to navigate their mind and use their minds into their hands, so to speak, and create something. But also during that time, it was the unfortunate death of George Floyd. So I think having that space to actually release and just have some kind of support from us, the club founders, as well as the other members who actually joined us on that call. I think it was definitely important to highlight just how they were doing, just to ask them how they were doing and how their mental wellness all around was doing, because obviously some of them were in lockdown, some of them had children, some of them still had to work, but they actually took time out to actually create with us. But I think it was an intentional time out for them. So them actually deciding to be intentional with their time during that lockdown period was actually something that we definitely do appreciate. But also we just wanted to highlight that we're there for them. We're there for them as well. Yeah,
that's incredible. You know, I looked at your IG, and all I can say is this is definitely not the knitting that I know. You have items, such amazing items on your IG beyond just the hats, mittens, and scarves that you would associate with knitting. Can you talk through about some of your creations on there? On your IG.
Yeah. On IG.
Yes.
That's IG. Yes. So with the creations on IG, a lot of the pieces or some of them we do have are collaborations, or even the fact when we talk about visibility, I think especially with our social media, and Vanessa very much leads on our social media, that we found that we ran this series called the Black Women in Craft series during lockdown. We gave different Black women who are crafters opportunities to take over our Instagram and share their stories, because obviously you find that sometimes with the algorithm, a lot of the crafters don't get that visibility in space. So obviously we have like thousands of followers to kind of give them that visibility there. And we met an amazing knitwear designer called Korleki, who does this amazing, it's almost like a lace kind of knitting technique on there. And we actually did a collaboration with her with a charity in Ghana called the Nabuk Foundation. So this amazing like Lorex orange corset top, using our upcycled peacock with deme yarn. And we had that shot in Ghana recently, and was part of our book launch as well. So she's on there. There's also an amazing another Black knitwear designer called Pedro Bassa, who did this. She created this crocheted kind of satchel bag for us, and also was part of kind of supporting us with the book. So her stuff is on there as well. She's also an amazing designer. We had Anya Pansel, who is more of a textile artist that looks a lot of kind of the idea of race representation with her work. So she's half Welsh, half Ghanaian, and kind of looks at her identity through kind of yarn. So she uses her own hair and makes these like amazing, it's like rug tufting to look at kind of how she was raised in Wales as one of the only like kind of mixed race women, and uses that through the piece. So we have a lot of different women within our Instagram, as well as kind of inspiration in terms of knitwear as well. So those are some of the really like exciting pieces, obviously alongside kind of showcasing our upcycled yarn as well, and how that can be used in kind of different ways. But it's definitely been a space to kind of showcase other kind of Black women and kind of the amazing work that they're doing. I think for us moving forward, how we then develop our products, etc. But it's definitely been a space to kind of for other people to showcase their skills and to give them that platform, because it's about visibility. And if we have a platform to give Black women that space, that's really important for us within our brand as well.
Awesome. Now, those pieces, guys, listen, go onto their Instagram and take a look at these pieces. They're actually breathtakingly stunning. So I will say, listen, go on there. Last year, the club was, you held a workshop at the Power of Festival in 2021. What is the Power of Festival?
The Power Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Do you want to answer that, Vanessa? The
Oh, I
power
thought
of
you were starting.
Yeah.
I thought you were starting it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the Power Festival is run by a guy called Daniel, and he approached us 2021 for that summer. And I think the Power Festival is actually just making sure that obviously you take back your power in terms of the narrative of each of like the brands. We had there was various different workshops on there. There was line drawing, there was exhibitions, there was a photography exhibition of black bodies and black art as well. But the Power Festival as a whole was just making sure that we feel empowered through different ways of expressing ourselves. So craft, art, photography, music. There was loads of live shows, and yeah, just gathering together,
Awesome.
to yeah.
Okay, so and I know this is not your festival that you delivered a workshop. Would there be another of that festival this year? Do you know?
I'm not too sure actually. I think
Yeah, I'm not
potentially
sure.
I think that was Daniel's first festival that he had done, and I
Mhm.
think it was in collaboration with Fred Perry, I believe, as well, that was supporting the session. But it was great to be part of. I think it was also it was just that it was just coming out of lockdown, so people had it was our first if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but it was our first
In person, yeah,
workshop. But I
yeah.
think again, there was some anxiety, were people going to come, were they not? But it was a great space. It was also supported by Lambeth Council, I believe. It was in
Mhm.
Hammersmith. So I think
Mhm.
he may potentially be doing it next year. But again, I mean, we've done the Power Off Festival. We've also done Black Girl Fest,
Yeah.
which is another amazing organization run by a Ghanaian girl called Nicole Krenzel. That's kind of also empowering different kind of black makers. That was our first ever dropping workshop, and we must have had about 1,000 women, Vanessa. Or am I being?
Wow.
It was a lot of different women coming through. I think it was our first drop-in session. We were a little bit nervous, like how are we going to get all these people through, and they all made it kind of like a bracelet. But I think that's what's really great about the fact of we did this as two friends and women to create this space, but we've been invited to so many things that we never thought we'd ever do, and seeing other black men and women running bigger festivals and spaces that we can also be part of and share our wider stories. We've done that. We did Black Girls Camping in the summer as well, which was for kind of like young teens, and they did like creative writing. And it was in this camp in East London that I think I went to when I was young, when I was like 11, and
Mhm.
Vina didn't know that existed in Debden, and we went down, and there were all these like kids in their Wellington boots, and they were playing music like, "Do you want a drink?" Okay, and just to see them kind of making, and they were there for like the long weekend, and
Nice.
writing, and we made them make different bracelets, but all very incredibly like engaged, young women that just wanted to learn. So the fact there's bigger things going on, I think that's also really exciting because we're able to connect with so many other people that also have that same mission to kind of support Black women, to, and support young people to push them forward. And I think that's part of our ethos, and that's kind of what we kind of just want to keep on pushing moving forward as well.
Brilliant. And picking up on that point about your ethos and changing narratives, on your website, you cite a piece from the ONS Annual Population Survey for 2018, and where you talked about the Black and minority ethnic individuals only make up 24% of creatives in the creative and cultural industries, and even becomes less when it's down to women. So Vanessa, I'm going to ask you, why is it that Black and brown women in the creative industry are still being underrepresented?
I think amongst our community, obviously, we see the fabulous work that they do, and we obviously try to champion them. But I think them being underrepresented in actual like workspaces where they are obviously predominantly white female or white people. I think the question should be how are they? Because obviously they actually have all the tools and all the work behind them. They have all the amount of experience behind them. So it's like, how come they are still being represented? All they do is have the credibility behind them. I think just to add, I just think that it's obviously it's a shame. It's a shame that they are so underrepresented, but I think more so it's just depends on the company and are the company willing to actually enforce these changes and enforce these narratives behind champion these different Black creatives. Yeah, if you want to add anything, Simone.
I would say, why is there still a lack of representation? I think if we're looking at even, if I'm looking from an educational perspective, and how as creators are taught, especially if we're talking about London or the UK, I think a lot of the curriculums and things are still very Eurocentric led. I think, in terms of the way the curriculum is taught, the kind of the history of craft and making is always from a kind of Eurocentric lens, which therefore means that this kind of narrative that, the Eurocentric way is better is always at the forefront. And that's often why when we look at Black and brown people and women, they're incredibly underrepresented, when in many ways, we know many women that have amazing skills. So I think there's a whole history around it as to why that we are not at the forefront. Yet, we are testament, if you see the things that we've done across these past 3 years.
Yeah.
And we're both, we have come from very amazing institutions, and the skills are there. But I think, when we look at the history of things, there's always a power structure, there's always a hierarchy. And unfortunately, it is that Black women in particular and Black men aren't at the forefront of that. And I think what we have learned, especially, and I think even if, there's a professor called Rose Sinclair, who's a Black professor at, lecturer at Goldsmiths. And she writes in this book, it's called Tracing Your Roots, the chapter about Black women in particular and craft. And she talks about the fact that we need to take more ownership of our stories and tell our own narrative when it comes to craft, when it comes to designing, and when it comes to making. I think that's where there's a shift, where you're able to take ownership of what you're doing, like we are, in terms of telling our own stories and archiving those stories, talking about it, doing stuff like this, doing podcasts, sharing what you're doing. Social media is powerful as well. And I think that's where the story changes, when you're able to then represent yourself, because if you represent yourself, nobody else can change that in that kind of way. So I think that is why it's really important. I think hopefully there's small changes, like, we've done the book, and there's so many different things that, there's so many different, every day we're emailed to do a million different things. There's so many different things all the time that, people are like, can you do this and can you do that? So, there's no excuse to say that you can't find an amazing Black designer or an amazing, Black crocheter, because they are there. But where are you looking? Where are you looking? There's Jeanette Salone has also set up a website called, quote me if I'm wrong, it's the BIPOC list for different Black kind of designers and crafters and makers. And you can also access that list to kind of find a range of different people that are doing different things within the creative industry. So I think if you look, you will find, and there's lots of people doing amazing bits of work as well alongside us. So we're hoping that our little steps that we're making are kind of, are making a bit of a difference, and we're being the change that we want to see. So we're hoping that we're going to make that little bit of difference.
I mean, I think you've already nailed it on the head, because you said you have a book now in the British Library, which basically is archived in the British Library. So it's going to be there. You've already started changing that narrative. And I think the fact that you're already showcasing and shining the light on other Black crafters, you're creating a platform that actually gets around the gatekeepers to say, listen, they're here. This is who they are. And so I think that you're right. The more we do things like this, the more we own our narrative and change our narratives. And you know what? I love how you've been weaving in, see what I did there? Weaving in throughout your upcycled wax print that you have at Liberties, which is your Peacock of Adame in store. Please tell me, how does this partnership come about?
With Liberty?
Yes.
Liberty. So it's really fun. I'll start with when I guess Vanessa will add to it. Is that we had actually been in Liberty like I think the year before, and we kind of just walked around, and I think I tried on this really like cobalt blue Izzy Miyake dress that I still haven't got yet. And we're just like, oh, we'd love to have like our yarns in Liberty. We actually went through the haberdashery department, and just was like, one day, next few years we're definitely going to be in here. And like, I kid you not, like the year, maybe it might be like 7 months later, we actually shot the shoot for basically the styling for the shoot for the yarn even before they approached us. So when they approached us, we already actually had the story, and we had already shot the kind of shots for it as already. And so when they approached, like, we've seen your yarn, we'd love to see a sample. We're like, oh my god, is this real? So they approached us and said, we've seen your yarns and we think it would really work with our story. Could we get a sample to them for them to see? And then once they saw it, they were like, and they saw the swatches, they were like, we'd love for this to be in our store. And it kind of started from there. So we've had like I think it's like something like 3 restocks of our yarn in there as well, which has been really, really exciting. It's been, again, it was something we never thought we'd do. And the Pico Deme yarn is a lot of like, the wax print cloths that we use initially. Obviously, that wax print cloth looks very West African, but actually has a cultural hybridity. It's actually like Indonesian, and it kind of also has a Dutch heritage. But again, we're both Ghanaian. It's something that we saw our grandmothers wearing, etc. So for us, with the brand, we also wanted something that kind of was linked to our heritage and our story, and the yarn kind of tells that. So it's kind of, it's cut into strips, etc. And that specific peacock is kind of, it's a demi fruit from Togo that's kind of passed down through different women.
Right.
It's almost like a sisterhood. So when we were thinking about the story, we thought about the fact that, kind of we knit together, we're kind of working with different women. So it kind of tells that very lovely. It's kind of story between us. And yeah, so that's kind of where it kind of started. So it's been exciting to see different people make different things. And yeah, I think anything you want to add to that, V, as well, in terms of?
Yeah, I think the key thing about actually just building a relationship with obviously a brand like Liberty, who are very prestigious, so been around since obviously the 1800s, I believe.
Yeah.
Don't quote me.
Yeah.
Don't quote me. Yeah, I think we were actually prepared for this opportunity. So I think just to give advice to any like business women or people who want to obviously get into business, I think just being prepared for the opportunity and making sure that obviously you believe in your own story and believe in the fact that no matter what may come, that you've already got so you already know that you're prepared. So I think being able to navigate that definitely has helped our relationship with them. And I think from then it's been like a snowball effect where we've obviously been recognized as, stockists in Liberty. So yeah.
Okay. So being prepared, I like the fact that you visualize this. You already were prepared. You had your shoots done before this became a reality. So you were working on some very powerful manifestations and forward thinking there.
That's true.
And I love that. I love the fact that you're like, we're prepared for this. We're ready for this. So if if you're listening to this, watching this and thinking it's luck, yeah, it is luck, because they were lucky to be prepared. They were ready. They had visualized. They'd done the homework. So if you want to call that luck, let's call that luck, and I'll take that level of luck. So yeah. So ladies, I want to thank you for being on the show. And before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions. So here's my question: do you both wear your creations?
Do you wear our creations?
Yes.
So
Currently not.
Currently not, no, because it's actually something, I guess, moving forward, that in terms of, because at the moment in terms of Black Girl Knit Club with our product, the only product we have is our yarns. So in terms of garments and actual physical pieces, we don't have it. We've done collaborations with other Black female designers,
right,
in terms of pieces and how we could potentially take that forward. When we've worn like Pedro's bag within Versatile, like in Ghana, kind of we work with Koleki's pieces. But definitely that's something that we definitely like, I guess, future manifestations, having like dresses and different kind of our kits as well is something that we definitely want to work on moving forward. So you can make your own garments and make your own kits using our yarn is something that we definitely want. But no, that's something that we definitely need to push on, I guess.
Okay, so once your dresses come out, just remember where the manifestation started.
Yes, we will.
Definitely. But I think even before we started selling our own yarn, we had that so we collaborated with a line drawer called Line and Honey, and she's been amazing. Like, she did all of our branding, she did our logo, she did our prints and postcards. So I think even before we actually had yarn, we actually had postcards and we had prints. So of Black women with the afro hair, with that hand knitting, so people could actually identify with that and whose brand that was, and obviously that's Black Girl Knit Club brand. So I think people actually would actually order those prints and actually have it in their home.
Right.
So we're not wearing it per se, but it's kind of been in people's homes and in our home, so to speak.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like this, and I will definitely go back onto the website and take a look. So, guys, also all their details will be here. They will have I'll put their links and everything so that you can go onto their website and take a look. What do you have currently coming up in the way of workshops that we have to look out for?
Oh, good question. So coming up, we're definitely going to have workshops linked to the book. I mean, we've had the book is out now, which is very exciting. You can get the book in Liberties. It's in foils online, Waterstones. We're going to have a series of workshops around the book, during the summer, and also from September leading up to kind of Christmas period. So yeah, we have a lot of workshops coming up and some other things in the pipeline we can't quite mention yet.
No problem.
But if you look on our socials, and you can join our newsletter as well through our website, then you can definitely be updated on the kind of the things that we have coming up in the pipeline. But yeah, it's all been very organic for us over these past 3 years. I think it's going to be exciting to see how everything kind of unfolds over the next year.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. So, ladies, you both have navigated your own individual careers and your journeys, and I guess and with this brand new platform that you've birthed and you're creating as you go along, I guess my question is, looking at your journey so far, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self? I'll start with Vanessa and we'll go to Sicgmone.
My 18-year-old self, I think just trust your gut and have more as in navigate your feelings within your gut, if that makes sense, as in trust your gut but also hear your gut. I don't know if that makes sense, but try it and hear your gut and make sure you actually leap with it, and just don't worry about what people think or people say, and just definitely obviously prepare yourself, but obviously just navigate with your gut.
Okay, thank you. Simone?
To my younger 18-year-old self, I'd say feel the fear and do it anyway. And take every opportunity, even if you don't feel you're ready. I think there's so many things where I think of that I'm doing now with the club where I've kind of been like, oh, I'm not too sure, I don't think I can do that. And actually you can, because there's so many things that you've skills within you. And I think, oh, when I was younger, I was a lot more nervous. If it was at competitions, especially going to one of a really good design school, I would never go for it because I thought, oh, I can't do it. I'm not ready. Whereas it's actually you're there, you're learning, you're not perfect, you're not the perfect molds. The fact that you've got the skills, try it out, take the leap, take the risk, do it anyway. I think surround yourself with people that understand your work, a community of people. So, take every networking opportunity, do stuff with your friends. If your friend's a photographer or you've got an idea, work with your friends, start small, because whatever you do then, you're going to learn, you're going to learn something from it. So for example, I had my own brand before, same as Vanessa, there's so many things that we learn through making those mistakes, whereas now we're here, we can be like, oh, we're not going to do this, or when we're like to take a risk, because we've done it individually and really in hindsight learned through those processes, and all these different skills that I was saying, scouring Brighton or collecting things or having to put shoots together. We're doing it all now because we've done it before.
Right.
We weren't sure what we were doing, but you're going with your passion, so if you've got a passion for something, even if you've got that retail job that you hate, keep going to the retail job and do your stuff on the side, because it's going to help you. Nothing is wasted. you know? So build up your skills, take your time, and don't watch what other people are doing, you know? Stay in your lane and be committed, because in the end, something will come from it. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, so we know that you have workshops coming up for summer and going into autumn, and looking forward to find out more about the things that you can't talk about yet. Give us your social links so that everyone can find you. Are you on LinkedIn? I know you're on Instagram, but what are the details?
You know, you can find us Instagram at Black Girl Knit Club, Twitter at Black Girl Knit, Facebook Black Girl Knit Club, and our website, which you can get direct updates, newsletter updates as well. If you subscribe, it's at www.blackgirlknitclub.com.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, here's my last question. Now, promise, last question. Now, and this is for both of you. So you have a Spotify list. And I have to say, that is a list and a half. It is such a good list. When I was researching and I started playing it, I'm like, yeah, this is how I miss my show, because I'm busy vibing to your list. It is such a good list. So here's my question. What is your favorite song from your list?
Ooh.
My one is Solange, Things I Imagined.
Oh, I like
that.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's my favorite one, I think.
Anything by Solange, definitely. And yeah, anything by Solange. Actually.
Okay. All right. So guys, if you want to find their playlist on Spotify, it's Black Girl Knit Club Sounds. And trust me, this list is good. You would throw it on Spotify and have a good day with it. So
I have to mention that playlist is by our kind of contributors, have been our photographer as well. That's really contributed to our Kingsley. He's been our like photographer, but also like our sound guy. And it's actually interesting having, you know, a man that's also, you know, part of our team, but it's also been a great support for us as Black Girl Knit Club women. And
awesome.
That kind of vision has come in with everyone's talked about how they love that soundtrack.
He's definitely seen us grow, and he's definitely been like our sounding board, and he's definitely been someone that has more vision sometimes and perspective that we're like, oh, okay, we don't see it from that angle, and it's definitely helped us like catapult us into where we are now.
Yeah. This is incredible. So shout out to your sound guy, Kingsley, who is also the sounding board and part creator of this amazing playlist.
Yes, amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So ladies, I want to say thank you very much for spending your time with me this evening and sharing your story. And actually, I want to also say thank you for creating this platform. And I think it's really important. It's a really important platform. So I'm looking forward to coming to discover if I can knit, because I'm telling you, I can't.
We're coming for you, and we're coming for you.
Yes, we're coming for you. Now that you've said it.
Now, because I'm going to be sending you an email, be like, Lillian, it's here.
Yeah, it's here. Time is now.
Okay. All right. Listen, I am open to learning new things. This is my mantra, so I'm open to learning new things. So I will bring my knitting needles and plasters.
Yeah.
So so thank you again for being on the show. Folks, it's a wrap. I want you to go over, discover Black Girl Knit, discover what they are doing. It's not just about knitting, it's creating a well-being and a community for women of color to come together to find a platform and safe space to speak, share, and heal, but also knit and create. And they are highlighting creators of color, Black and brown, who need to be seen with their platform. So this is it's not just about knitting, it's more than knitting. It's knitting and some, it's knitting and stories, it's knitting and owning our narratives. So please come and discover Sicgmone and Vea and Vanessa Koranteng in the work that they're doing, and support them by buying a copy of that book for your creative friend so that they can have a copy. Let's collectively change our narrative. Ladies, once again, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having us, Lillian. We appreciate it. We can't wait to listen back.
You are so welcome. All right, it's a wrap. So you know what to do, folks. You've listened, you've liked, you've shared, share it some more, and tell us what you want to hear next. And most importantly, go back, share this show, and go and link on with them on their socials. So for now, I'm going to say thank you for being on the show with us. Good night.